One of the greatest communication tools that we use as an SEL strategy in Breathe for Change is called the peace process. The social-emotional learning competencies it aligns with is pretty much all of them, but specifically self-management, responsible decision-making, and relationship skills. This practice is grounded in Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication process that is a 4-step process for how to engage in an effective conversation to truly gain awareness of your own emotions, your own needs, and to make a request of someone or something that will allow you to authentically communicate what's there for you. This process is something that we do with adults all of the time, and it can actually change your life. This is why we think it's so important to use as an SEL strategy, because we need to teach students how to effectively engage in conversations, and especially when they're dealing with conflict. So how it works is there's 4 steps. 4 steps. The first step is called observations. In this step, you state a fact or something that you observed without any generalizations or judgments in it at all. So for example, let's say I had a meeting with Tui last night and she was 10 minutes late and didn't communicate. I could say something like, last night, Tui, when we had a meeting scheduled, you were 10 minutes late and didn't communicate. Now that's all fact. If I said you're always late, then that would not be a part of this peace process because it's not very peaceful. Once the observation stage is done, then we move into emotions. This is where we get really clear about how that situation or that interaction had us feeling. So, and we take responsibility of our feelings not by saying it made me feel, but I felt. So I felt upset, frustrated, and concerned. So we encourage both students and teachers to choose 3 feeling words because that really gets at the nuance of the emotion. And then once you're clear on what happened had you feeling, then we invite you to the 3rd stage, which is needs, to get super clear about what needs were either fulfilled or unfulfilled by that interaction. So for example, in this case, Tui, when you came to the meeting 10 minutes late and didn't communicate to me that you were going to be late yesterday, I felt concerned, upset, and frustrated because of my need for communication, clarity, and consistency. So you're really getting clear about what those underlying needs are that we so often forget about. Then once you've declared your needs, you move into the 4th stage, the final stage, which is a request. This is where you make the other person you're engaging in the peace process with a request. So in my case, it could be, so would you be willing to text or call me ahead of time if you know you're going to be late, or just show up on time in the future? In some cases, the request, and this is super important to share with students, may be something like, can you just acknowledge that you heard me? Sometimes it's not even asking that they need to do anything, but that this is just an acknowledgement that you heard me authentically communicate to you. So with older students, I would walk them through those 4 steps. And you'd actually utilize the nonviolent communication packet that Marshall Rosenberg so eloquently put together. There's a feelings inventory, there's a needs inventory with a bunch of words that help students get clear about their feelings and their needs. And Breathe for Change has also put together a packet where they can actually write out their nonviolent communication and practice it in writing before they communicate it in practice with someone else or in reality with someone else. Now, one of the things to note is that after those 4 steps are done, let's say I've communicated that with Tui, if she were engaging in the peace process with me, she would repeat back what she heard me say and then respond to my request. So when you're teaching this process to students, first I'll speak to the older ones, it's very, very important that you, one, talk through each of the steps, model the way I did with you, each of the steps, and then actually model you doing the practice with either another student or another adult, so that they can understand what it looks like. Then I would have them, write one for themselves and then practice it. Now, this is something that I would teach at the beginning of the school year, so it can become just a part of the way that all of your students communicate with each other and also address conflicts between each other and with you. And you can even create like a peace corner, like I did in the classroom, where people can engage in this conversation. If they're having a conflict, they can go to the peace corner, engage in the peace process, and come back ready to learn once they've completed. With younger students, it's something, this is basically how you can teach them the different emotions and how they can talk about their emotions. So in my pre-K classroom, I put up in my peace corner a bunch of different pictures of the students making different faces. So like frustrated, happy, sad, angry. And so we did this whole exercise where they got to see their own faces, talk about the emotions, so that when I taught them the process, they could use these basic emotions, but they're not nuanced. We're teaching like younger ones the basic emotions. As they go through elementary school, you can add more and more emotions to expand their vocabulary. And then after that, you can have them, you model with them multiple times examples that you might see happen. So for example, Josh, when I asked you to play with me at lunch and you said no, I felt sad, scared, and upset because I need love and friends. So would you be willing to play with me tomorrow? Now that may be more like something you teach the pre-K kids, and then you do different examples based on who your students are. So this is absolutely something we recommend teaching at the very beginning of the school year, like I said before, and then continuing to come back to it every single time a student comes to you with an issue. Can we, have you done the peace process yet? And as a teacher, you can even offer to facilitate it in the beginning so that they get the practice, and eventually your students will do what my pre-K kids did and come screaming at you, Miss Ilana, we solved our problem in the peace corner. We're gonna get 2 bears each day and then we switch. Or the older ones may come with a little different expression of that, but a similar impact. So I really, really recommend that you use this process. We've differentiated the packets for the younger students and the older ones, and we'll make sure to give you those resources as well. And just model it, embody it, and make sure that you're doing the peace process too. That is the most important thing. If you aren't doing that and you're not communicating in this peaceful way that you're teaching your students, then there's absolutely no way that they're going to understand the importance or be able to effectively do it themselves. So enjoy implementing this process, and I really hope it's effective for you and your students. And here are just a few examples of how it might look like with actual students. So I have a question for you. Do you always feel like you have the right words or you know what to say when you're communicating with friends? No. How come?
Because sometimes you get mad at each other.
Yeah, sometimes you get mad at each other. What about you?
Sometimes some of my friends they want to be friends and they don't want to be friends all the time.
And that's like, how does that make you feel?
Sad.
Yeah. So what we're going to teach you today is something that has made such a big difference in my life and in both of our lives. And it's called the peace process. And it's this amazing communication tool that allows you in those kinds of situations when you're feeling angry or sad or frustrated because you don't really know how to communicate, to better communicate, and so that you can feel heard and seen and hopefully move forward in whatever relationship it is with from a better place. Are you excited to learn? Cool. So there's 4 steps to the peace process, and the peace process is from what's called nonviolent communication, which was created by this man named Marshall Rosenberg. And the first step of it is when you're having that kind of conflict with your friend. So give me an example of one.
Maybe if your friend wants to play a different game than you, but you want to play another game, and so
Perfect.
they just don't want to play with you at all.
Perfect. So I'll use that as an example. So the first step of the peace process is to say the observation of what happened. So you can't say like, you always do this or that, because that's not necessarily true. It's only what you observed. It's like the fact. So in your case, it might be, when did that happen? Last?
I don't know, like this year.
Okay, so I could say something like, you might say something like, hey, when I asked to play a certain game with you and you said no, you wanted to play the other game, right? So that would be the first step. And the second step is you talk about how you felt because of that situation, or how you feel because of that situation. So how did that situation have you feeling?
Like angry, but also sad.
Perfect. So you might say, when I asked you if you would play that game with me and you said no, you wanted to play a different game, I felt angry and sad. So that's the second stage, is feelings. So, and you did it perfectly. You don't go on a story of like, I felt this because of X, Y, Z, because no, it's just naming the emotions. And then the third stage is you say what needs you have. So for example, what did you need in that moment that wasn't being fulfilled?
Someone to play with me.
So you needed a playmate, a friend, friendship, connection maybe. So then you'd say, so when I asked you if you could play a game with me and you said no, you wanted to play something else, I felt, do you say angry and upset? Because of my need for a playmate, friendship, and connection. And then that's the third step, the needs. And then the last step is a request. So for example, this is when you get to say, so would you be willing to, and you get to ask for what you want. So what's a question you might ask this friend?
Would you be willing to play a different game with me?
Perfect. So I would love to see the two of you practice it together, and I think that you can use that example. Would you be willing to listen to him as he does that? And then how that works is so you'll go through those 4 steps. You'll say what you observed, what happened, what you felt. Do you remember what the third stage is?
Needs.
Your needs. And then what's the last step? The special request, right? It's that question that you want to ask your friend. So once he says all those 4 steps to you, then you can repeat back and tell him you get to respond to him. So you can say, when I didn't, or when you asked me to play the game with you and I said no, and you felt angry and upset because of your need for friendship and connection and a playmate, yes, I would love to play a different game with you. So do you see that? You get to respond. So you want to practice together?
Sure.
Okay, you can look at each other. And you can go whenever you're ready. And you can just you get to pretend like you're the person who he had that interaction with, okay? Cool.
So when I wanted to play a game with you and you said no, and that made me feel angry and upset, and
Because of your need for
because of my need for a friend and connection, and would you be willing to play a different game with me?
Yes. Because of your need for connection and friendship.
Awesome. Now, how do you feel?
Happy.
Me too.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Good job.
So good. What was it like to speak through those 4 steps?
It made me feel better.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
Because I got to express my emotions.
Awesome. And so you can use that peace process whenever you're in any conflict with a friend, with a family member, with someone you don't even know, just to be able to, like you said, express yourself.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. That was beautiful. You're amazing. And I'm so glad that you had that connection. Super cool. Boom.
Trevor.
All right, so I have a question for you. How many of you are always awesome in your communication? Say more.
Never. Well, I try, but I can't speak English properly.
So do you have, like, when you're in conflict with people,
Yeah,
how do you,
I just like start mumbling and like.
you start mumbling?
Yeah, like I can't keep a conversation going for too long. Like after a while, it just gets boring, and then I just stop talking.
Are any of you like I know that when I am in conflict with someone, I often like retreat or like pull back and I don't speak up for myself, and some other people are like rawr and aggressive. What are you all like when
I'm the raw.
you're the rawr?
I step back.
You step back?
At a certain point, I get angry, so it comes out.
I actually went through that, and then
Yeah. So it's super interesting because we all, like, we could be coming to a similar conflict in a relationship and totally react a different way. And so what we have today, or what we want to introduce to you today, is something called the peace process. And it's an absolutely powerful, I mean, like, completely changed my life, powerful technique and tool that this man named Marshall Rosenberg created. It's actually, and he calls it nonviolent communication, but we've named it peace process. And it's this 4-step process that allows you to truly understand, like, observe what's happening in a situation, that whether it's a conflict situation or any situation, observe what's happening, understand like how you're feeling about it, because it's so often we like don't even have an awareness of how we're feeling, which is why we like react so strongly. So understand the feelings, and then what our underlying needs are that were or weren't satisfied because of whatever it was that we observed. So for example, if Tui was late yesterday, and then I felt, frustrated, upset, and, sad because of my need for communication, support, and integrity. So you get that, like the needs. So we have these underlying needs, and if they're not met, then like we're gonna feel a certain way. And so but we often forget that we have needs too. We've talked about that before. It's rare for us to actually consider our own needs before others. So this is a process that helps us do that. And then after you get clear on the needs, then you get to ask a special request. So for example, if Tui, when you were 10 minutes late to our hanging out session yesterday, I felt frustrated, upset, and worried because of my need for communication, integrity, and support. So would you be willing to text me ahead of time if you know you're going to be late, or just show up on time? You see how that like request at the end that allows the person that you're in conflict with or that you're just communicating with to actually respond to, so that it can, the relationship can be, you know, can move forward. So as you can see on your sheet, there's the 4 steps, and I just briefly walk through them, but I want to talk a little bit more about each step, and then we'll give you an opportunity to like work through it on your own. So the first step is super important. So it's an observation, it's fact only. So this is where we get stuck with in judgment, like, Tui, you're always late. Is she gonna hear me? Because that's actually not true. What is true is that yesterday she was 10 minutes late. Does that make sense? So it's short. So it's not like, oh my God, you always leave the laundry on the room, blah, 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 blah. That's not the peace process. You've already gotten out. This is fact only, and you don't want to go into a bunch of story about it, a sentence or two. And this may be a pattern that someone has shown you years after year after year after year. Tui may, quote, always be late, but you want to choose the last time it happened so that that person can actually hear. Does that make sense? Then the next one is you say how you felt. So you were late for 10 minutes late yesterday. I felt, and you want to choose 3. I would say 2 to 3. But I usually choose 3 because it really gets at the nuance of your emotions. 3 emotions. It's not like I felt like really afraid because of this. It's literally sad, upset, frustrated, worried, whatever those are. And it's not you made me feel. It's I felt. You're taking responsibility for your emotions. Does that make sense? Okay. Then the needs. So this is what, like, if you're using this as a way to deal with conflict, then these are the needs that weren't satisfied by what happened. Because of my need for consistency, love, attention, support, whatever those needs are, friendship. So that's where you say, and just like the feelings, you don't go into a sentence or 2 about it. You literally pick words because of my need for love and this. And I would pick up to 3 of those needs. And then once you say those, then you ask the request. And the request is super important because you're not, it's not like peace process doesn't necessarily work only if the person says yes to your request. The point is to allow you to get super clear and communicate effectively. And like that, Tui can say no, but I didn't repress my emotions or I didn't react in a certain way. I just clearly communicated so that we could have a really powerful relationship. Does that make sense? So you make a request of what it may literally be. So would you be willing to acknowledge that you heard me? Or would you be willing to show up on time next time? Or would you be willing to, and then if you're doing the peace process in a setting with each other where you both know about what those 4 steps are, then Tui would do, like, as a mindful listening exercise, repeat back what she heard me say. So let's give an example. Ready? So Tui, yesterday when you were 10 minutes late to our hangout time, I felt sad, frustrated, and confused because of my need for consistency, communication, and integrity. So would you be willing to text me or call me in advance so that I don't have to wait next time if you know you're going to be late?
So what I hear you say is when I showed up late to hang out with you yesterday, you felt sad, frustrated, and confused because of your need for consistency, integrity, and communication. And what you just need from me is to either just show up on time or send you a text message and let you know that I'm going to be a little bit late. I can absolutely do that.
Thanks. So cool. So do you guys get the peace process? So what I would love for you to do is just like for a moment, you can close your eyes or find a point in front of you to focus your gaze and just think about some conflict that you're in right now in a relationship that you care about, that the peace process might help. So maybe it's someone in this room, maybe it's another friend, parent, sibling, teacher, someone in the neighborhood. And just visualize that person. Perhaps think about what you've observed, that fact piece, what happened. That's removing judgment from it, but what happened that made you feel disempowered? And then how did you feel? What are those 3 feeling words? Maybe it's sad, upset, angry, confused, disappointed. Whatever it is, just think about those words. And then consider what your needs were that were not satisfied. Maybe in that situation you needed love or validation or support, trust, consistency, communication, whatever it is. Just think of all the needs that you had up to 3. And then what's a request you might make of that person so that you feel heard, seen? It can be anything. They don't have to say yes. But what would make you feel free? There's no right or wrong answer. It's just the opportunity to feel more connected in your relationships and with yourself. So when you have that request in mind, you can open your eyes if they're closed. And now I'm just going to invite you to practice this on each other. So you can turn to a partner. If it's someone in this room and you're brave enough to have this conversation be to them, then you can absolutely do that. But so just turn, you can turn knee to knee. Will you be with him? Sure. And how it's going to work is I'm going to say, like the person who's doing the peace process, who's going to speak first, will say, like, you are going to be, like, whether it's your friend, your mom, and you let them, give them like one sentence of context so that they know who to embody in this practice. And then you can go through the 4 steps. And as the person who's being spoken to, you just mindfully listen, and then you'll repeat back what you heard. And you can respond to the request in whatever way feels authentic. We know that you're not this person unless it's actually a real situation. So does anyone have any questions about the process before we begin? All right. You ready? Awesome. So whoever feels called to speak first, you can now let your partner know, I'm ready. And then let your partner, before you begin, you just let them know who they are, and then you can go into the 4 steps.
So yeah.
Not the same person, but like
Just
contact.
Yeah.
I saw your first video. I felt good. Even though it wasn't a video me, the video, but I was just like, I felt happy because I just like how you were pursuing that, and I feel I know I like you want to do more, keep on going, and it'll be easier for me to talk about it as long as is there like a time where we switch where it's just like
Did you repeat back what you heard? So you can switch partners when you've gone through both sides, then you can switch, yeah.
I would say being on.
okay, I heard.
And you would like me to be less judgmental towards you and like to step back and ask for lessons to you. And I would definitely do it. My daughter. You're my daughter.
My mom's like this. I can't do this one.
I mean, you gotta try now.
No, I won't.
I promise it will. Try. Like literally, it won't work if you add judgment into it and all that, but there's nothing to fight against. And like, honestly, if the person doesn't hear you, then you probably have your answer. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if it's about a relationship, mending a relationship and they don't want to hear it, then it's like, but it also opens up an opportunity for them to show up in the way that you're asking for.
Yeah.
You're done, and they're done.
You really choked on water.
That was awesome.
Like the sound that you
So if everyone can come back into the circle. So first of all, it was really awesome to witness all of you engage in that conversation. I know it's not an easy conversation. The peace process never is. That's not the point. The point is to give us all the opportunity, like we were talking about, to like fully express our deepest truths and to like speak from a place of authenticity and to truly create beautiful relationships. And that's not easy, but it's super important. So I really hope that you are able to use this process with each other in our community and beyond with all your relationships. I know it's totally transformed my relationships with my family, the people in my work, and so, I mean, and then all the thousands of people with whom I've taught this to. So just out of curiosity, what were some things that opened up for you? Yeah.
Okay, so
It's okay, it's just the bell. It's typical school day.
And the thing that I was talking with Momo about, that I was talking about how he was not helping me when I was choking. But it's like, it's more easy to, in a sense, to talk it out and have someone listen and then see what they actually gonna say. Because it's like, now that you could tell that they're actually listening to you. And it's not just like, it's going in one ear and out the other.
Totally, totally. Thank you. It's true. It's like when you sit with someone and you authentically share that way and they hear it, that in and of itself is healing, you know? Awesome. Anyone else?
I feel like in a way, like having someone listen also opens up a gateway to like even more emotions than what you originally had an idea about. Like you start thinking deeper into the conversation, deeper into what you're trying to have this person understand about you.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it just opens a gateway to your emotions, depending upon what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Totally. A gateway for deeper connection and understanding. Yeah.
I feel like with the guideline of like this exercise, it like you've been emphasizing, it would help with like connections and feeling like emotions, and I can definitely see it, because if you're just having someone sit down and tell them just like, we're gonna do this, and it shows me that you're listening to me, but that I'm also going to be listening to you, and just I don't know, I really like this idea, and I feel like it can help a lot of people out.
Aww.
Yeah.
Take that paper with you and use it everywhere. And I really encourage you to, you know, for some of you, you may have done it authentically with the person you were sharing with. And for those of you who did it like as a practice, like try and have that conversation and see what unfolds for you. And teach this to your friends so you can continue to have this kind of support to have you show up. And honestly, sometimes you don't even need the conversation. Sometimes if you just take your step, if you're in like this moment and like a difficult relationship moment, then sometimes using this process of like, okay, what actually happened? What am I feeling? What are my needs that aren't met here? And what requests can I make? You might come to your own answer and heal through literally just going through the process on your own. And you can also use this to talk to that little voice inside your head that may be telling you that you're not good enough, or you're not smart enough, or you're not lovable. You can say, hey, little voice in my head, when I hear you tell me that I'm not good enough, I feel betrayed, sad, and upset because of my need for support, love, and teamwork. So would you be willing to be on my team? You know, and only share words with me that are supportive. Super powerful process. So I hope you enjoy it and use it all over the place. And you're the best. High five your neighbors. Boom.